And we're recording it so that we can post it online for those unable to attend the live session. As you have questions, please type them into the chat box. I think that should be on the right of your screen. We have deactivated the audio for everyone, so you are all on mute. So you'll have to post your questions in the chat box. So on the webinar today, we have Chris Furland, who is the chair of the Transient Student Working Group. We also have Jonathan Hull, the Assistant Director of Policy and Partnership in the System Office. And my name is Heather Collins, and I'm the Policy Analyst here at the System Office. So before we discuss the details of the review, we want to outline the Complete College Georgia Policy Review process. Our process is intentionally broad and includes several levels of development and review. We incorporate many perspectives from around the system to allow for ample opportunity for input and discussion. There are many pathways to submit policy for review to us. We have a portal on the CCG website to submit policy issues, as well as campus officials and system office staff can also bring issues to our attention, and we are in regular communication with Regents advisory committees on policy in need of review. Because of these multiple entry points, our process incorporates several opportunities for discussion and vetting by system office staff, as well as campus representatives, and the transient student review process is reflective of that. Majority of the policy that CCG focuses on is related to student completion. And as policy under review progresses through the process, we work with Regents advisory committees as well as the Board of Regents to get feedback and approval and communicate the implementation process to everybody involved. So to just briefly go over the timeline, transient student issues were raised by the Regents Advisory Committee for Registrars in 2015. The focus was that inconsistencies in the transient student approval process across campuses, as well as the complexity of the process, could potentially inhibit students from taking transient courses and possibly prevent students from transferring transient credit as they intended. Also, this process specifically looks at USG students taking transient courses at other USG institutions. So this excludes any private institutions, students going from a private institution to a USG institution, and vice versa, as well as international students. But overall, there are about 11,000 students taking transient courses system-wide any given academic year, so this process does affect many students. In February, we established a working group for registrars, working group of registrars, advisors, and system office staff that began discussing these challenges. And in March, we identified some recommendations that would help students complete the transient process and earn credit. And this month, we're providing these recommendations to you all and other campus leaders to review and provide feedback. At the end of the review period, the revised recommendations will be provided to the Regents Advisory Committee for Academic Affairs, as well as Dr. Houston Davis, for approval with the goal of implementation over the summer. So now we'll go over the aspects of the recommended proposal. So the working group has reviewed the policy manual as well as the academic and student affairs handbook and determined that changes only need to be made to the handbook. By maintaining current policy, these revisions do not require board approval. These revisions are included in the documents that can be found on the Policy Center section of the CCG website, and we've included the URL link here, so you all can go to that and see all of the documents as we go through them. So the group identified general responsibilities of the home institution, as well as the visiting institution and the students throughout the transient process. So for the home institution, the responsibilities included confirming the transient student's academic standing. And this is still consistent with what has been happening on campus. In addition to that, home institutions are responsible for providing guidance on where students can go for advising on transient courses. Also, home institutions are responsible for granting appropriate credit upon receipt of an official transcript from the visiting institution. Visiting institutions are responsible for communicating special information needed to complete the admission process. So some examples of that are immunization records, lawful presence, home institution transcript, and other things like that. This is information that is not required by all institutions, but may be specific to just some. Visiting institutions are also responsible for communicating course availability and enrollment information to the student as well. And so for students, they're responsible for determining their own academic preparation for these transient courses. Obviously, they would do that in addition to having guidance provided by the home institution. Students are also responsible for confirming transient courses, confirming that transient courses transfer to home institutions, as well as complete all documents required by both the home and visiting institutions, and arrange payment for transient courses with both financial aid offices. So in addition to the responsibilities, the group compared the current process with other policy related to learning support and found that a learning support classification for a student cannot be used to automatically deny transient permission. Further, learning support requirements can be satisfied by transient courses according to current policy. However, standard learning support regulations still do apply in this case, so students must be enrolled in LS courses in required areas even as a transient student. And we provide a little more detail about satisfying these requirements in the guidance document, and if there are specific questions, we can answer those individually. We also clarified what information to include on transient permission request forms and what information is specific to visiting institutions that should be included in the admissions application. And so we developed an example of a permission form that could be used by institutions not currently using the web-based form that's managed through Banner. So I know the screen may be difficult to read, but these examples can be found on the CCG website with the link that we provided earlier. So on page 1, that's the left panel that you see. The form includes the method of delivery, which is right here, for students to select. We've also included a checklist for students to use to navigate the transient process. And the checklist also helps to articulate those responsibilities that I just went over for the student. So on page 2, we include an academic equivalency table to help registrars appropriately record courses on transcripts. Some institutions already include this section or something similar, but having this information about academic equivalency prior to enrolling will help everyone be informed and be able to plan accordingly. This may also encourage students to initiate an advising conversation before registering for transient courses. And so we also included a section for signatures, be that an advisor, a department chair, a dean, the student themselves, whoever is a part of the transient approval process. They can include signatures here. And then at the bottom is the section for registrars to confirm academic eligibility. That's right here. And so we also created an example of a supplemental form for institutions currently using the web-based Banner form. Because the current online form does not include a student checklist or the academic equivalency table, this form is meant to capture this information. And so we've highlighted those here. This is the checklist. And here's the academic equivalency section. And at the bottom is the space for the student signature. And a link would be provided to this form after the student completes the regular online banner form. And again, these are examples of solutions that encompass the information that the group identified as important to the transient process. And we fully expect that these forms could be adapted to each institution as needed, but it does capture the general information that we believe will be helpful in easing this process for both students and registrars. And so that's the summary of the recommendations. It's all pretty straightforward. The documents have been uploaded on the URL that was up before. If you didn't receive them, please let us know. We'll be sure to get those to you. We're accepting feedback on these recommendations through Friday, April 29th, so that's a week from tomorrow. And after this, we will post the final documents to the CCG website, and as I mentioned earlier, we'll follow up with RACA as well as Houston Davis after this. So at this time, we're happy to take any questions that you may have on any aspect of the CCG review process or the recommendations. Please be sure to chat those in the text box on your screen.
This is Jonathan Hall. There's a question that has come in about learning support placement and courses are different at another institution. I'm not going to entirely defer this question to our Gen Ed Council, although I will get back on this with more clarity. But the home institution's learning support placement and course is probably the trump on this. Satisfying learning support at the home institution is as opposed to the host institution, is the element that is most important. The placement issue, if the student places into learning support at a home institution but does not place into it at the host institution, we'll have to get back on that because that would be a concern, or vice versa, that might be a concern. So I appreciate bringing that up. Okay. Are there any other questions? We're not seeing any. I'm not sure that means we've gotten this nailed down tight, although I'd like to think that.
Okay, great. Well, if you need the link again, that's no problem. We can put that up. There we go. There's the link. And if you all do have any questions, you can be sure to email me. My email is heather.collins@usg.edu. And you can also use the portal on the CCG website. There's a place to type in any suggestions you may have or comments, but either is fine. All right. Well, thank you all for taking a few minutes today to hear our presentation. Again, if you have any questions, be sure to contact us, and have a great day. Thanks for your time.